Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel and thank you for joining me for another episode of Quick and Wicked. If you're new here, Quick and Wicked is a segment on my channel for true crime recaps, updates, just some bite-sized pieces of information, or in today's video I am doing another compilation. Last week we went over the top 10 murder trials of 2023, at least through my lens, for whatever that's worth. But I wanted to compose a list of the top murder trials to expect to see in 2024 in hopes that we see the justice be served for the unwitting victims in these cases. Now, for the sake of simplicity, I'll just be listing these ones in chronological order. And I will have to break up this video in 2 or maybe 3 videos because as I was gathering the trials for this video, my list just got longer and longer. And for the sake of time, because this is supposed to be a quick and wicked, right? Hence the quick. I wanted to split the trials up in the first half of 2024, the second half of 2024, and then of course as new trials are scheduled or old trials are rescheduled, things like that, I'll be sure to do update videos for those as well. Now, all of the information gathered for these trials is public information that I found on the internet. Of course, things do change. Sometimes details might be misrepresented. So be sure to do your own research and form your own opinions. Additionally, when I was doing the research for this video, not surprisingly, I did find a lot of these trials. They do have a lot of gruesome details, particularly the ones that are involving crimes against children. So if that's not something that you want to hear today, I completely understand, but this is probably not the video for you. So I do suggest you click out of this video and maybe I can catch you on another one. So without further ado, here are the top murder trials for the first half of 2024. Number 1, Michelle Trones. A mother of 5, Jennifer Dulos went missing in May of 2019. Shortly after dropping her children off at school. And of course, in any case where there's suspected foul play, investigators typically look at the spouse first. And this case was no different. Law enforcement found that Jennifer Dulos had been in the process of a bitter divorce and custody battle with her estranged husband, Fotis Dulos. During the time of Jennifer's disappearance, Fotis was in another relationship with the defendant, Michelle Trones. They were both charged in connection with the disappearance and murder of Jennifer Dulos. Shortly after being charged with the murder of his estranged wife, Fotis Dulos actually died in January 2020 after he committed suicide, leaving only Michelle Trones to face trial. That would change when a third person was arrested. Kent Mawhinney, a former attorney and friend of both Fotis Dulos and Michelle Trones, was charged with conspiracy to commit murder after he allegedly tried to provide a fake alibi for Fotis the morning the suspected murder took place. According to the prosecution, video surveillance footage captured around the time that Jennifer Dulos went missing showed Michelle Trones sitting in the passenger seat of Fotis Dulos' pickup truck as he dropped bags into a number of garbage cans around town. Those bags were retrieved by investigators and later found to have contained blood and DNA of the victim. Footage shows Trones lean out of the truck where she seemingly wiped something up. And the prosecution believes that it was blood or some other type of evidence. While the body of Jennifer Dulos was never found, she has been presumed dead based on additional blood evidence found in her garage, where the prosecution believes she was unexpectedly ambushed. Through a search warrant, investigators found what they're calling the alibi scripts, which is essentially a handwritten note detailing the places that Fotis Dulos and Michelle Trones went on the day of the disappearance. The note was apparently written in both Fotis Dulos' and Michelle Trones' handwriting. Now, from the very beginning, Trones has vehemently denied any knowledge or involvement in the disappearance and subsequent death of Jennifer Dulos. According to her story, Michelle Trones said that she had no idea what her then boyfriend Dulos was doing the day Jennifer disappeared, saying that she was on her phone while he was dumping the bags. And when she asked him what he was doing, he just said, don't worry about it, just relax. She did mention that she helped him clean his truck that day, but suggested that She only wiped up a coffee spill. Another part of the defense may include the suicide note Fotis Dulos left behind, where he specifically said that Chaconis had nothing to do with the disappearance of Jennifer Dulos. In that letter, however, he still maintained his own innocence. Additionally, the defense team has also brought up issue with Chaconis' previous attorney, suggesting she had ineffective counsel as he erred in allowing Chaconis to speak to the state police on 3 separate occasions. While this will not be brought up in trial, it may be used in an appeals court if a guilty verdict is reached. Michelle Chaconis is being charged with conspiracy to commit murder, tampering with evidence, and hindering prosecution. In the state of Connecticut, where this trial is being held, the maximum sentence for the conspiracy charge is 60 years in prison. However, the actual sentence will be dependent on specific circumstances that are unique to this case and is ultimately up to the discretion of the judge. Now, this trial has already started on January 11th. As I'm recording this, it's January 13th, so there's already been 2 days of trial. I've been watching it so I can give you a quick overview. And to be honest, it's been very, very tedious. And that's for a couple of reasons. One, the prosecution is really just laying the groundwork. So they're showing a lot of footage, hours-long footage of the police looking into the house of Jennifer Dulos. And they're going over the pictures of the evidence. And they're really just trying to prove to the jury that Jennifer Dulos is in fact deceased. Because since no body has ever been discovered, it's important for the jury to believe that she is deceased, even though a judge ruled that she was deceased back in October of 2023. Number 2, the defense attorney is doing all he can to object to evidence that he believes is unfairly prejudicial to Chaconis, which any good defense attorney will do. So it's a very, very slow process as of right now, but I'm sure that once all of the evidence is laid out, the trial is really going to gain some momentum. Another thing that I wanted to add is that apparently in the state of Connecticut, they don't do opening statements, which is seemingly blowing everybody's mind. I'll admit that I do find it was very odd, and I don't know if that's just because we are creatures of habit. But as I thought more about it, I think I actually prefer there to be no opening statements because the jury can't really conclude their opinions of guilt until they actually see the evidence. They have no foundation of what the defendant is being accused of, so they have a blank slate that they can really form their opinions on based on the evidence alone. It is often said that a good opening statement can convince a jury of guilt, and that's not really what our judicial system is supposed to be about. So I might be alone in this opinion, but it's my opinion nonetheless. But let me know what you think. Number 2, Franklin Tucker, the Treehouse murder trial. On November 17th, 2017, 2 masked men attacked a 53-year-old Paula Belmonte who lived on the rooftop of Matthew Bonnet's treehouse on Stock Island. One of them put a knife to her throat and demanded money. Belmonte screamed at the top of her lungs, and the masked man proceeded to cut a 7-inch gash into her throat. Alerted by the screaming, her neighbor, Matthew Bonnet, rushed upstairs, where the 2 assailants went after him as well. He was stabbed multiple times from behind as he tried to run away. Belmonte survived the attack, but unfortunately, Bonnet was pronounced dead by the time the police arrived. Now, according to the investigators, they believe that one of the masked men was a man by the name of Rory Wilson, and the other is the defendant, Franklin Tucker. Over the course of the investigation, detectives believe that Tucker and Wilson were sent to the treehouse by a woman named Anathea, or April, in retaliation over a drug debt. Much of the witness testimony puts Wilson at the scene, as the victim, Belmonte, identified him as her attacker during a lineup. Apparently, at one point, he had taken his mask off to where she was able to identify him. A third man was also connected to the attack, a man by the name of John Travis Johnson, who was allegedly hired as the getaway driver. Now, it was this man who initially pointed police in the direction of Tucker, suggesting the robbery was actually Tucker's idea after he learned that Belmonte had a large sum of cash in the treehouse. Now, the defense team In an unexpected turn in this trial, Franklin Tucker actually has decided to represent himself without any additional defense attorneys by his side. Now, Tucker says that not only was none of his DNA recovered at the scene of the crime, but no evidence suggests that he was at the treehouse when this all took place. Even the surviving victim, Belmonte, told police that he was not there. She is scheduled to be a witness for the defense. However, due to a severe illness, Belmonte is currently in the hospital, so a judge will have to rule on whether or not she can testify from her hospital bed. Tucker also points out that he filed a complaint due to how poorly the investigation was conducted, where the motion was sustained and over 200 pieces of evidence were found to have been mishandled. Additionally, the arrest affidavit for Tucker was found to be highly inaccurate. On another side note, after Tucker was arrested in 2017 and put into jail, an old high school friend of his, Lauren Janae, reached out to Tucker after she heard about the case. Now, Janae happens to be a co-founder of CrossFit. So she decides to bail Tucker out of jail and believing that he's innocent, and the two were actually married while he was on house arrest. Franklin, or Ty Tucker, is being charged with robbery, homicide, aggravated assault, and battery. Now, when I first heard that Franklin Tucker was going to represent himself, I immediately thought like, oh dear Lord, here comes another circus like Daryl Brooks. However, the trial started on January 11th, and so far he seems to be rather articulate. He knows some legal terminology, and he seems to be well composed, asking the witnesses some coherent questions. So I'm certainly caught by surprise. So far, he really seems to be holding his own, but we'll see how this trial pans out. It's going to be an interesting one for sure. Number 3, Adam Montgomery. A 33-year-old man stands accused of murdering his 5-year-old daughter by repeatedly striking her in the head with a closed fist. Harmony was reported missing in November of 2021, nearly 2 years after she is believed to have been killed in Manchester, New Hampshire. Despite the years-long search efforts, the body of Harmony has never been found. The state has filed a witness list which includes Adam Montgomery's father, uncle, grandmother, and his estranged wife, Kayla Montgomery, who is to be the prosecution's star witness. Earlier this year, Kayla Montgomery told investigators that Adam Montgomery was responsible for the death of Harmony. According to her statement, Adam struck Harmony in the face or head on 3 separate occasions because she had a bathroom accident in the backseat of his car, which is also where Adam Montgomery was living at the time. Once they parked the vehicle, it was apparent that Harmony was no longer alive, which is when Adam Montgomery placed her body into a red and black duffel bag. Over the next several months, Adam moved it around where he'd occasionally keep it outside in the snow in order to slow down the decomposition. Investigators allege that Adam Montgomery finally disposed of the body in March of 2020. Evidence may show toll data showing a rental truck crossing the Tobin Bridge in Boston multiple times, and that truck was being rented by none other than Adam Montgomery. Now, the defendant has consistently maintained his innocence. The defense has filed motions to bar certain evidence from the trial, including purchases he made at a Home Depot, where he purchased a grinder and 2 40-pound bags of pelletized limestone in late February 2020. In addition to these purchases, Adam's defense team also wants to block additional information from being brought up in testimony, including some allegations that he had abused his romantic partners, neglected to care for Harmony, and his history of selling drugs and firearms. They are also asking for information about his estranged wife, Kayla Montgomery, to be allowed, such as her criminal record and lying under oath. The defense's chief goal is to really undermine Kayla Montgomery's testimony, hoping the jury doesn't believe anything that she has to say. Now, in June of 2023, Adam Montgomery was sentenced to up to 60 years in prison on unrelated gun charges. At the sentencing hearing in that case, he addressed the allegations of the killing of his daughter. Quote, "The only consideration I ask of you this morning is not to consider anything as it relates to the case regarding my daughter Harmony. I did not kill my daughter Harmony, and I look forward to my upcoming trial to refute those offensive claims. End quote. Adam Montgomery is being charged with second-degree murder, abusing a corpse, falsifying evidence, and tampering with witnesses. If found guilty, Adam Montgomery could be sentenced to up to life in prison. The trial date is set for February 6, 2024 at the Hillsborough County Superior Court in Manchester, New Hampshire. Number 4, Karen Reed. Karen Reed is accused of striking her boyfriend, Boston police officer John O'Keefe, with her car and leaving him outside to die during a snowstorm on January 29, 2022. Earlier that night, Reed and O'Keefe were out drinking at a bar when they decided to go to the party at the home of Brian Albert around midnight. Brian Albert is also another police officer. What happens next really depends on who you ask, and I'll talk about those different perspectives in a bit. But never entering the home, Karen Reed left the Fairview Road residence where she left John O'Keefe there. Karen Reed returns to the house around 6 a.m. where she finds John O'Keefe deceased on the front lawn. Days later, Reed was arrested on suspicion of hitting him with her SUV and leaving him to die. Now, this case is going to be a big one. Both sides seem to have a lot of evidence to support their theories of what happened that night, but we'll have to wait to see what evidence is upheld. But until then, I'm going to summarize it the best I can. Some details I'll discuss more in depth during the actual trial, but for the sake of this video, I'm going to try to condense it. Now, according to the prosecution, Reed and John O'Keefe got into a fight that night. According to the police, Reed called a friend at 5 a.m. and said, "John's dead. I wonder if he's dead. It's snowing. He got hit by a plow." According to a paramedic, Reed allegedly repeated, quote, "I hit him. I hit him. I hit him." Investigators seized her SUV from her parents' home and found it to have a shattered taillight, several scratches on its rear bumper, and shards of glass embedded in the bumper, and the glass was seemingly consistent with glass that John O'Keefe was holding that night. Prosecutors also suggest that parts of the taillight were found in the snow outside of the home on Fairview Road. Now, the defense team has a completely different account of what happened that night. Reed's defense team has alleged a large-scale cover-up in the case, pointing to evidence on John O'Keefe's body, such as wounds found on his arm. While the prosecution suggests the wounds came from being hit by a vehicle, the defense found that the wounds were more consistent with an animal attack, highlighting the possibility of being attacked by the Alberts family dog, a German Shepherd that they had for 7 years. Now, coincidentally, they have rehomed the dog since. The theory provided by Reed's attorney, Alan Jackson, suggests that the dog attacked John O'Keefe inside the Albert residence, and that's where the life-threatening injuries were sustained. They believe O'Keefe was killed inside, and those responsible moved his body and began the cover-up. Cell phone data was gathered on the other individuals at the party that night, and Jennifer McCabe, Albert's sister-in-law, her phone records showed that she Googled, quote, "how long to die in cold," just hours before 911 was called to report O'Keefe. Hours later, McCabe allegedly tried to sanitize her phone of the contact with Albert, deleting his contact information, which was saved under Uncle Brian A. Additionally, an independent witness, a snowplow driver, said that his route had him at the Fairview Road residence at 2:30 in the morning, where he specifically said that he did not see a body on that lawn. Not that he doesn't know if there was one there, but he equivocally said there was no body on that lawn. Alan Jackson said he believes O'Keefe was set up that night and alleges a large-scale cover-up, pointing to the evidence on his body, the cell phone data, and the Google searches from Jennifer McCabe. The defense team also poked holes in the prosecution's theory, arguing that none of the individuals at that party that night on January 29th observed John O'Keefe's body on the front lawn, in spite of the fact that Mr. O'Keefe's body was supposed to be mere feet from the road that these individuals would have to take in order to leave the residence. Now, much of the evidence provided by both sides is being debated, such as the events that unfolded before arriving to the Albert residence, whether or not John O'Keefe ever went into the Albert residence, the glass and the broken taillight on Reed's SUV, the statements that Reed allegedly made to her friend and the paramedic, the phone records of Jennifer McCabe, as well as the details provided by the snowplow driver. All of these things are being argued in court as each side tries to come up with additional proof to uphold their opinions. In addition to all of these disputes, the connection of the primary investigator in this case, Trooper Michael Proctor, to the individuals at the party is also a hot topic. While the prosecution say that no ties exist, Jackson said the defense team has found several photos dating back decades, purportedly showing Proctor's family, the primary investigator to this case, his family socializing with the relatives of the McCabes and the Alberts, the other individuals at that party that night. Some photos even show both families being a part of the same wedding. Not that they both were invited to the same wedding, but they were actually in the wedding party. Now, this creates a conflict of interest in Trooper Proctor's investigation, but perhaps what the defense alleged was his involvement in framing Karen Reed as the murderer. In addition, it has been revealed that the feds are investigating the investigation of Karen Reed, and for something like this to occur is highly unusual. Many of the prosecution's witnesses for this case will have to testify in front of a grand jury. Karen faces charges of second-degree murder, motor vehicle manslaughter while driving under the influence, and leaving the scene of a collision while causing injury or death. Karen Reed has pled not guilty. If found guilty, Karen Reed faces a potential life sentence in prison. Now, this trial is set to start on March 12th, 2024 at the Norfolk Superior Court in Dedham, Massachusetts. However, I do question whether this date will stick. I think it might be rescheduled pending if there's anything found during the federal probe. So I do anticipate that might be moved back a bit. Number 5, Tiffany Lucas. Tiffany Lucas, a 32-year-old Kentucky mother, was arrested last year for allegedly shooting and killing her 2 children, 6-year-old Maurice and 9-year-old Jaden, at their residence on November 8th, 2023. Police arrived to the scene to find a neighbor rendering medical aid to the 2 boys. The neighbor was asked if the mother was the shooter, to which he pointed to the firearm on the bed and said yes. The same neighbor recounted the details of that day, saying as he pulled into the driveway, he saw Tiffany Lucas walking down the steps of his porch, eventually collapsing in the driveway. When he approached her to see if she was okay, she told him her kids were dying. That's when this neighbor ran into the house to find the 2 boys covered in blood. Both boys were suffering gunshot wounds to the head, but were still alive in critical condition when police arrived to the scene. They were both rushed to Norton Children's Hospital, but unfortunately the efforts made were not enough to save the boys' lives, and they succumbed to their injuries shortly after their arrival. At the arraignment on January 8th, the court heard testimony from Detective Richard Beal, who provided insight into the horrific shooting that led to the boys' deaths. According to his testimony, Beal had asked Ms. Lucas if she intended to hurt her children, to which she responded that it was an accident. She reportedly told him that no one else had been in that home that day and that she left the firearm in the bedroom. Ms. Lucas made other comments such as, "I'm in such a bad spot, I'm so stupid, and I would never do anything like this unless someone manipulated me," indicating that she was being manipulated through Facebook, through the internet, or through Wi-Fi. During the course of the investigation, law enforcement obtained ring camera footage showing Tiffany Lucas run out of the residence just moments after 4 loud bangs, what is suspected to be gunshots, coming from inside of the home. The footage seemingly confirmed that no one else had been inside the house other than Lucas and her 2 boys. As of now, her defense is unclear. However, based on the comments she made, I believe she may try to use the not guilty by reason of insanity quite frankly, because that's the only thing that I see that might have a snowball's chance in hell to stick. There's really no other explanation of how you can accidentally shoot a firearm 4 times, hitting both of your sons in the head. Like, there's really no other explanation for that. A judge has set a $2 million bond, and Tiffany Lucas is being charged with 2 counts of capital murder. She is eligible for the death penalty if she's convicted. Now, as far as the trial date, I've heard some conflicting reports. Some say the trial is set for March 18th, while others have said that the next hearing is scheduled for March 18th, and that is where the trial date will officially be set. So keep that in mind. Number 6, Chad Daybell. Chad Daybell is being accused of the first-degree murder of his first wife, Tammy Daybell, and the children of his second and current wife, Lori Vallow, 7-year-old JJ and 16-year-old Tylee. When the children were reported missing in the fall of 2019, both Daybell and Vallow refused to cooperate with the investigation. The couple was later found in Hawaii and extradited back to Idaho. Remains of the children were found on Daybell's property in June of 2020, and days later, Daybell was arrested on June 9th. Friends and associates of the couple have said that they were deeply involved in a cult-like religion with an apocalyptic views, believing that they were surrounded by demonic entities and zombies, including the children. Lori Vallow faced her trial in May of 2023, where she was found guilty on all charges, including the first-degree murder of JJ and Tylee and conspiring to kill Tammy Daybell. The prosecution presented nearly 24 pieces of evidence, including documents, photos, maps, and body camera footage. The prosecution entered a thumb drive said to contain Daybell's search history into evidence. Due to the graphic nature of the evidence, the judge ordered that the media would not be allowed to show photographs or videos of the evidence, though they will allow Daybell's trial to be broadcast. The prosecution witnesses include law enforcement who questioned both Vallow and Daybell, and those who uncovered the children's remains, as well as the medical examiner who performed the autopsies. Additional witnesses include Lori Daybell's former friend, Melanie Gibb, and this is the woman who Lori claimed to have the children when they were reportedly missing. Daybell's defense attorney is questioning the reliability of the prosecution's witnesses, suggesting that the detectives didn't record all of the interactions, believing their recollection of the encounters may not be completely accurate. Additionally, his defense attorney has filed a motion to withdraw from his case, seemingly because Chad Daybell's finances have run dry, and he's requesting that Chad Daybell is appointed 2 new attorneys that are certified in the death penalty. Chad Daybell is facing 8 charges, including the murders of JJ Vallow, Tylee Ryan, and his first wife, Tammy Daybell, conspiracy to commit those murders, and insurance fraud related to Tammy Daybell's life insurance policies, and 2 counts of conspiracy to commit destruction, alteration, or concealment of evidence. If convicted, Chad Daybell faces a potential life sentence. His trial is set for April 1st in Ada County, Idaho. And just to add a quick little tidbit on Lori Vallow, some are questioning why Chad Daybell is facing the death penalty while Lori Vallow did not. And it really seems to be a simple discovery violation by the state. Certain documents weren't submitted by a deadline, and the judge ruled that it would have violated Vallow's constitutional rights. So if they had proceeded with the death penalty, the entire eviction could have been appealed. But Lori Vallow is facing another trial in 2024 where she faces 2 conspiracy to commit murder charges in connection with the death of her 4th husband, Charles Vallow, and an attempted murder on the former husband of Vallow's niece, Brandon Boudreaux. Lori Vallow's 2nd trial was initially scheduled for April 4th, but has since been pushed back due to its complexity. Number 7, Shanana Gardner and Mario Fernandez. Shanana Gardner and her current and seemingly estranged husband, Mario Fernandez, are being accused in the murder plot of Gardner's ex-husband and father to her children, Jared Bridegan, who was gunned down on February 16, 2022, shortly after dropping off their children at Gardner's Jacksonville Beach home. Bridegan called his current wife and the mother to his other children, Kirsten, to tell her that he was on his way home, but he never made it. Police said that he was ambushed with his 2-year-old daughter, Bexley, in the backseat of his SUV after someone left a tire blocking the road. When Bridegan got out of the vehicle to move the tire, he was shot multiple times where he died at the scene. Police say that some of the bullets fired at Bridegan went inside of his car, just inches away from hitting his 2-year-old daughter. The odd details of this event led investigators to believe that this was a targeted attack. An arrest was made in January 2023 of a man by the name of Henry Tenen, who they believed to have been the gunman. A connection was later found when investigators realized that Tenen had previously rented a home from Mario Fernandez, or Gardner's current husband. Henry Tenen pled guilty to second-degree murder of Bridegan and has agreed to testify against both Gardner and Fernandez. According to the indictment, Shanna Gardner plotted to have Bridegan killed as far back as May 2015 after the two had split. Like with many divorces, also came a contentious custody battle. The evidence against the couple includes wiretaps, recorded jailhouse calls, and other monitoring methods. The prosecution believes the motivation behind this murder plot was due to the custody battle where a court ruled on joint custody. Additionally, according to the arrest warrant for Fernandez, bank records showed several handwritten checks from Fernandez's account made out to Tenen, or the gunman, though the amount of these checks has never been released. Phone records also showed 70 phone interactions in the months leading up to the ambush. The defense in this case is going to be a little different. Though Gardner and Fernandez are being tried together, they do have separate attorneys. Additionally, it seems as if the couple had been estranged just before they were arrested, making me wonder if the defense teams plan on working together and try to find a not guilty verdict for both, or perhaps point the finger at one another, or maybe make a deal with the prosecution. I'm sure the prosecution is going to try, turning one against the other in hopes to make a deal. So we're going to see how that goes. Also, as a quick note, Shanna Gardner's attorney is none other than the high-profile criminal defense attorney, Jose Baez, the same attorney that got Casey Anthony acquitted. So there's that. Gardner and Fernandez are facing charges of first-degree murder, solicitation to commit first-degree murder, conspiracy to commit first-degree murder, and child abuse in connection with Jared Bridegan's death. If found guilty, Gardner and Fernandez both face the death penalty. The trial date has been set for April 13th, 2024. Last, we have Donna Adelen. Donna Adelen, a 73-year-old woman arrested in November of 2023 for the murder of her ex-son-in-law, Dan Markell. Donna's daughter, Wendy Adelen, and Dan Markell were going through a tumultuous divorce involving a custody battle for their 2 young children. After Markell learned that Donna continued to make disparaging remarks about him to his children, he filed a motion to prohibit Donna Adelen from having unsupervised visits with his children. However, in 2014, Dan Markell would be shot in the garage of his home before the motion was ever ruled on. 2 men were arrested for the murder of Dan Markell, but after a deeper investigation, law enforcement found a link connecting the hitman to the Adelen family through a woman named Catherine McBanawa. McBanawa was in a relationship with Donna Adelen's son, Charlie Adelen. She was also the ex-girlfriend of one of the hitmen, Sigfredo Garcia. The other hitman, Luis Rivera, and Catherine McBanawa would accept plea deals where they testified against Charlie Adelen. In the fall of 2023, Charlie Adelen became the 4th person convicted for the murder of Dan Markell for his role as the mastermind behind the conspiracy. During his trial, prosecutors introduced into evidence multiple exhibits involving Donna Adelen and her communications with her son and daughter, from wiretapped phone calls to texts and emails. Not only did Donna seemingly implicate herself on wiretapped phone calls, but her signature on several checks implicated her as one of the financiers of the plot. One of the key pieces of evidence implicating Donna Adelen was the FBI operation known as The Bump, where agents posed as a blackmailer connected to the hired hitman who killed Markel. The undercover agent approached Donna Adelen with an article about Markel's murder, requesting $5,000 and left a phone number. Donna Adelen immediately calls Charlie Adelen, where she seemingly talks in code about the hit. Much of the evidence introduced during Charlie's trial was circumstantial evidence, but it proved to be highly incriminating. After his conviction, law enforcement intercepted Donna Adelen's flight plans moments before she and her husband Harvey boarded a plane with a one-way ticket to Vietnam, a country without extradition, suggesting a consciousness of guilt. Now, the law is well settled that evidence of the flight is admissible as being relevant to infer consciousness of guilt where sufficient evidence exists to establish that the defendant fled to avoid prosecution. Not only was Donna heard on jailhouse calls discussing her plan to flee, but the fact that the tickets were one way to Vietnam, they were not round trip, showing that she had no intention of coming back. So I believe that that will be sufficient evidence to establish that she intended to flee to avoid prosecution. In addition to this, Donna Adelen was also heard having conversations about a possible plan to commit suicide after she got her affairs in order. Because of this, Donna Adelen is in solitary confinement. The prosecution has disclosed that they still have additional evidence against Donna and perhaps other Adelens that has not yet been made public. So I'm interested to see what else they received. Just recently, they did seize 2 laptops. I believe it was 2 laptops and some computers from Donna Adelen. So this family doesn't seem to be very smart when it comes to concealing their evidence. So we'll see what other digital forensics the prosecution has against the Adelen family. Donna Adelen's defense team has requested that she be released on house arrest pending trial or placed in a different unit within the jail so that she may be permitted to contact her family and prepare for trial. The defense is also expected to request that Adelen undergo a psychiatric evaluation, and this is a request that the state does not oppose. Now, I am interested in seeing what her defense comes up with because Charlie Adelen's entire defense relied upon this bizarre story of him being a victim of extortion by the men who killed Dan Markel, which seemingly benefited the entire Adelen family. In addition, his story relied on the concept that these hired hitmen let him be extorted on a layaway plan. That obviously did not go well for Charlie Adelen. So I'm curious to see if Donna plans on doubling down on that extortion story or if they come up with something new and kind of throw Charlie under the bus. We'll see how that goes. Donna Adelen is being charged with first-degree murder, conspiracy, and solicitation. While an official trial date has not yet been set, she has not waived her right to a speedy trial. With that, they do have a deadline for her trial. And it is said that Donna Adelen is not doing very well in jail. This woman has been living with a silver spoon in her mouth her entire life. So I'm sure her being in jail and not having the luxuries that she's used to is probably weighing on her pretty heavily. So I think that she wants to get her trial over with as soon as possible. And of course, she thinks that she is going to be found not guilty, just as Charlie Adelen did. But I think she's going to be in for a rude awakening. But this could mean a potential trial in the late spring. So those are the top murder trials to expect to see for the first half of 2024. In my next video, I'll be discussing the cases in the likes of Alexi Treviso, the young woman who tossed her baby into the trash can at a hospital, the Richard Allen and Delphi murders case, Chad Doerman, and of course the highly anticipated Brian Kohberger and the Idaho 4. So make sure you're subscribed, hit the notification bell so you don't miss it. And if you enjoy my content, be sure to hit that like button. Other than that, that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.